Hey everybody, Big E. Welcome to Big E's YouTube channel. Hey, today we're going to be doing an alternator rebuild. Save a couple bucks. Price on this alternator for the Shithawk was an AC Delco. You're looking replacement. You're looking anywhere from about $90 to about like 125, 130 bucks. So what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to rebuild the alternator from the Shithawk. The kit, $32 for the rebuild kit, and that includes the rectifier, diode trio, and other miscellaneous parts. Obviously, we're going to be putting new brushes in also, as the other ones were. Here they are. These are the brushes that I pulled out. I don't know if you can see. This one here, maybe you can. You see how that thing's, well, both of them are worn super, super bad. Okay. That would explain why the alternator was only putting out 12.5 volts. An alternator, if it's working properly, should be between 14.7, 14.8, 14.6, somewhere in that area it should be putting out. If you have an alternator which has battery voltage, that thing is just basically freewheel. It's not doing a damn thing. So I went ahead and let me move this camera down. I'll show you what the carnage looks like here. Let me make some room for you guys. Let's take it up in the air here. So as you can see, we got this the back piece of the alternator. We have the, let me move this up so maybe you guys can see a little more here. Maybe not. We'll put it like this. So we have the stator. Okay. You have, and it slips me, but this is inside the stator, so this helps create the magnetic field. It kind of works like the principle of a magneto. When a magneto in like your lawnmower or a small engine passes past the pickup, it like zaps like a spark plug. That creates the electric, which keeps it running, keeps your ignition running. This is the same principle, but as you can see, the stator has a shit ton, has a big magnet, and has all these windings in here. And when this passes inside of here, it creates electrical current, which come out these three prongs here, which go into your rectifier, which magically charges your battery. So we took this one apart. I went ahead and before I took the alternator off of the Shithawk, I took it upon myself. I was like, you know what, I'll hurry up, get this done, and I should know better than to try and jump the gun. And I ordered an alternator rebuild kit that I thought was the correct one. It was for a single wire, which even if it's wrong, it's no loss because I can use it on the turd, because that I know is a single wire. So when I took this apart, I realized right away with the way the rectifier was on a single wire and the way the rectifier is on this one, it wasn't going to work. Plus the diode trio, what makes this one different is the diode trio has these extension arms on it. Okay, normal alternators just have the regular 1, 2, 3. This one here has the extensions on it. Okay, and it's offset. And if you look at the diode trio that goes in here, if you look at those posts, you will see they're not straight across like other alternators. These two are higher and this one sits lower. So you have to identify what alternator you have, and that is tricky. It took me, I actually found a website where they show you can actually identify the alternator from the back. Okay, so if the alternator is on your car, you know where the pulley is, where the belt is, the opposite side's the back, obviously. So how that all is positioned and where the wire terminal is, and the rectifier, cooling holes and stuff. Somehow they're able to identify that. So that's, and the other thing I did, which really didn't help, was I didn't really know for sure until I took the alternator apart. So if you have a vehicle you don't mind it's going to sit for a little bit, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to rebuild it, because pull it apart and see what you have, and then just go through. There's what, a dozen or so different Delco alternators out there. So you have to kind of like tear into it and pull it apart to see what you have. So I basically took a shot in the dark here. It looks like the pieces are right. This is a 27 SI Delco alternator. There's a 10, there's a 12, there's a 17. There's many different types. If you start looking on Google, a different type of AC Delco alternators, there's a shit ton. So anyway, I'm rambling on here. I'm probably boring the fuck out of you guys, so I'm going to go ahead and dive in it. So I already have the alternator part, so I could identify what I needed. So I'm going to try and take you over some of the highlights of disassembly. So the first thing obviously you want to do is when you take it apart, I left the pulley on. So what I did was, I don't know if you can see, there's a red paint line there. Okay, so what I did was I indexed the front half and the, hang on a minute, let me show you here, and the back half of the alternator. So that way when you put this back together, it'll help it go together. And then when you go to put it on the car, obviously your mounting holes for your supports and stuff would be at the right spot. Okay, so do yourself a favor and index the front and the rear covers of the alternator, so that way that'll help you get it together. So basically I pulled it all together and I showed you the prices and how bad they were. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull the rectifier out, and that's cracked, and I'm going to show you that. And then once we do that, we're going to start putting we're going to give it a quick clean, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to put it together and hopefully have this thing that it's ready to go back on the car. So anyway, I'm going to turn the camera down here. Hopefully you guys can see what's going on here. So I'm down here right now. Let me move this stator over and move it out here. So basically what I'm going to use here is a 1/4 inch, okay, to get some of these loose. So I'm not real up on the terms here, and I apologize. I probably should have done more homework than what I did on this, but a lot going on. So I'm going to take these 2 bolts out. I'm going to pull this piece out. This goes, I don't know if you can see, this piece here, okay, goes over here. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to pull that out. Alright, we'll set that over here, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull the rectifier out. So pull this out, again using a 7/16. Okay, we'll set that here. Now looks like I need an 11mm here. This holds the rectifier here, but it also holds this here stud for where your battery cable comes in the back of it. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to try and get that off of here. And this stuff isn't really tight. There's no reason to bolt tight this stuff. Again, there's electrical connectors, la-da-da-da-da. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take this nut off, and the rectifier comes out. Okay, so it's looking kind of rough. And I don't know if you can see here on this middle terminal, it's loose because I don't know if you can see how the porcelain here is cracked. Okay, that's not a good thing. I would assume any kind of cracks or anything like that's not a good thing. And this terminal's loose inside of there too, so that doesn't help. So what we're going to do is, this looks pretty good. I did clean it out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and wipe. I'm going to do the Redneck Precision cleaning on it. So there's needle bearing in the back there. So what I'm going to do is try and get some of this gunk out. Okay, at least most of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try and put, excuse me for a minute. Okay. Sorry about that, but I put a couple pumps of grease in there, okay, for when we reassemble. Okay, now, so we have this case is stripped down. As you can see, there's only things left: the one mounting bolt and the power stud, if you will. Okay, so now we're ready to put in a rectifier. I have a rectifier here. I don't know if you guys can see. If you have a 21 SI, there's a part number for the rectifier. It is DR5174PF. I'll show you that one more time. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to carefully put this in. Okay, so we have it in place. All right, so that's nice. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna put. I'm only gonna finger tighten that for now, because remember, we have this piece over here we have to put in yet. So we're gonna hand tighten that. Okay. Now we have the new, like I said, I wish I knew what this was called. We have this new piece. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put that in place as well. We got that one started. We'll start this one. So then what we can do is just tighten this up. Apparently, maybe I don't have that one quite right. Or that one. Let me see here. It's always interesting when you try and do this stuff that sometimes it just doesn't work. So it feels like that one started. And I believe that one might too. I know definitely this one started. So I'll go ahead and help it along a little bit. It's the only thing, when you're dealing with bolts that are this small, you have to almost be dead on, or else it's not going to work. But it feels like it started. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to run that in. Okay. And then we're going to tighten this here with the stud. Not overly tighten it. Okay, remember, it's not, we're not holding horsepower back here, we're just holding this in place. And we're going to give these just a little tweak. I would say like 8-7 foot-pounds, if that. just snug it up, because you don't want to break this stuff. And it definitely don't. This is cast aluminum; it'll strip out real easy. So you don't want to go nuts when it comes to tightening it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have our actual piece here. I'm not sure, but so you can see there's a hole in the case where your electrical connector is going to go. Okay, so what you want to do is, and it, like, you hear it drop in, it is indexed. So as you can see, this is lined up in there, and this is like that. Okay, so now you're not done. This puzzle piece now gets a little tricky. So now you have the brushes you got to put in, the brand new brushes. Now these pieces here, this hole and this hole, are indexed, because I don't know if you can see it. Lighting is terrible. Do you see these two nubs here? Okay, those actually is where this is going to line onto. So when you put that in there, it helps to locate it where it needs to go. Okay, so that way that's how it sits in there. So I'm going to go ahead, let me run the bolts in here, and I'll show you what it looks like finished here. But and get these started. Now the one thing that I'm a little worried about right now is how I'm going to get the piece on and then pull this pin out to release the brushes against here. So I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So I'm going to go ahead and run these in. And all the time I'm watching to make sure that those holes are indexed against there, so that way everything's positioned the way it should be. I mean, you're talking small amounts of clearances here for this alternator to work. So I'm going to go ahead where it seems like it's good. So I'm going to go ahead and just call it good. That's tight. That's tight. That's tight. Okay, so there it is. Okay, you have your brushes. This is the pin I'm talking about. That's in there because these are spring loaded, and that's what's going to keep pressure of this against these brass collars on here. Okay, that's what helps make your electric. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to pan out yet, so we'll have to wait and see. So now our next thing we got to do is put the stator in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to steal these nuts here, because they're still good. They're a little rusty, but they're fine. They're making good connections. So we'll take this. We'll have to line it up with the 3 terminals. So there, drops in there real nice. You can see kind of looks a little bit like an alternator now. And we have to, I'm going to go ahead and if you look closely, there's notches here. Okay, that's for the bolts to go through. Make sure those are lined up as well before you go nuts. Tighten this down. So we're going to go ahead and start these. Might be harder than I thought. It also doesn't help when you have sausage fingers. I think that one is started. We'll give this one a whirl. Okay, that one started nice. So that one, I might have to revisit that first one. It just doesn't feel like it started the way it should. So maybe what I'll do is I'll try. Sometimes if you flip them around, they have a better thread or something engagement. So, and naturally it's giving me a hard time with this. So I'm going to have to get a needle nose or something here. Let's see, can I get it with this? There we go. Alright, so here we go. Starting this nut, take 15. For some reason, I can't get the angle quite right to get this thing to... And that happens sometimes. You just can't get... You're going to fight with some stuff. Alright, so what I'm going to do here... I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tighten this up once I figure out what size it is. I don't think it's that. It's probably standard because I forgot this is like I said, it's a 1985 model year. So I'm going to have to go ahead and dig my standard stuff out and figure out the size. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to pause the video here, find that, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to tighten this up, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, I'm back. So I got them tight. Okay, the three there, they're tight. So now our next step is actually putting this all together. So we got grease there, we got that there. I'm really scared about this because I don't know, I haven't done enough of these to have a trick that's going to work, to be perfectly honest. You know, my whole thing is going to be, you know, how am I going to pull that apart, you know, once I have it together. Like now I have it together and I could push it together, but that pin is still in there, you know what I mean? So I don't know if there's a way I can look in from the top here and pull it out. I don't think there is because the whole... You know, you're not going to have any room when you look in there to really pull that pin out, is my thing. So, not quite sure how this is going to work. I got to figure it out because it's one of those where it'll slide right in there. I just had it together, but the brushes have to be against to figure that out. For this thing to work, it needs to be against. So, let me go ahead and check this out. And when I come up with a trick, I'll be right back, and we'll finish this rebuild up. All right, Biggie, I'm back. What I did was I'm going to try some. I've been looking at this now for a while, so getting these brushes and this pin out. So what I did was like I said, I spent about 20 minutes here mentally masturbating this thing. So what I came up with is I went ahead and I drilled a hole through the case so the pin sticks out back here. Because what's happening is this pin, it was bottoming out. It wasn't letting me get the alternator together because this part here, again, I forgot the name, but this part here was hitting that and it wasn't letting it come together. So I went ahead and I drilled a hole through the case. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to very carefully try and get this. That has to be like perfectly lined up. So what I'm going to do is see if I can get this to go together. So let me get this turned. Line up my marks. Okay. Now I'm going to try and see where that is. I'm going to try and have that hang off the bench so that if it goes together, it'll push right through that hole. But I think my biggest problem right now is the stator's crooked. So we have to make sure and pull this apart again. We have to make sure that this here part is in there straight, which it is not. So I'm going to go ahead and have my little tiny hammer. Don't hit on the wires. I'm going to try and get this to go in. The problem is it's crooked, so I may need to... It should go. It's starting to go. Like I said, this stuff's how old. So is it any wonder it doesn't line up? So now that's sitting in there nice and straight and flat. So now that we did that, remember we're going to have that pin over here. So we're going to try this. Where's my mark? Look for my red mark. Is over here. So let's put that here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and line that up. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and that I think is about together. So what we're going to do is, and it's in. Okay, so there's our pin sticking out. I'm going to leave that in for now. So what I want to do is the bolts that hold the pieces together. Let's double check on our index. Okay. I don't know if you can see our index here. The light's terrible, but it's right there. So we're going to go ahead and start those. I'm trying to remember the size here. I might not have the right socket once again with me. It is then it's probably the 5/16 that I put in a drawer, which I should be able to find here. And of course it's making a liar out of me. So once again I get to look like a moron here. Yep. All right. So I'm just gonna try and start these by hand. If I can get these started by hand, though, and I might have to tweak it a little bit and get that to start. Now that it's lined up. Really thought I had that socket here. I probably do, but Lord knows where it's at by now with all this back and forth. So we have that started. That one started. Let's get the other two here. So what we're going to do, I'm going to look for this socket, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to finish up this alternator rebuild. Alright guys, Biggie, I'm back. So I went ahead and tightened this. We pulled the pin out of the back of the alternator that held the brushes, and you hear them snap in, click, click. Your 2 clicks. So that's against. Take a good look at your alternator. Everything looks, there's your rectifier. This is tight. that's ready to go. Now the important thing is it spins freely. I mean, you're going to hear it because that's the brushes rubbing against, but there's no play in the shaft. So my guess is with the stuff fixed that was wrong, I'm going to put this on the shithawk maybe tomorrow, and I'm going to test it out with a voltmeter. But I'm guessing this thing's probably ready. It's probably going to put out at least 14.5 volts, which would be great to charge up the battery. So anyway, that's kind of a crash course on how to rebuild an alternator, a Delco alternator. So hopefully you learned a lot. Hopefully it helps you guys out and with rebuilding your alternator. And like and subscribe. I'm going to have some other stuff coming up too. So take care of each other. Watch out for each other. We'll see you next time on Big E's.